billions of dollars out of wasteful and unnecessary spending in America, whether they be ethanol subsidies, whether they be sugar price supports, whether they be payments to the wealthiest farmers, whether they be the loopholes that are out there worth I don't know how many billions and billions of dollars. I guess my critics, and frankly, from the tenor of your questions, think we're going to do business as usual in Washington. We're not.
Senator,
I'm their worst nightmares. I'm their worst nightmare, my friend.
Congress has never made anything close to the kinds of cuts that would be required to get your numbers 30%. So here's my question.
Sure.
If Congress does not give you the spending cuts you say you can get, will you hold off on signing the tax cuts?
No, of course not, because we want to increase people's taxes during a recession. And by the way, when Ronald Reagan came to office, we did restrain spending. It's restraint
Nothing near 30% in non-defense discretionary.
My friend, we have increased the size of government by some 40% just in the last few years. By some 40%, by trillions.
But
trillions, we have increased the size of government.
Here's what I don't understand.
So why would you not think that if we stop that increase in the size of government in the form of $1 trillion or so, that we can't balance the budget?
During the campaign, you said that you voted against President Bush's tax cuts because the spending constraints weren't there.
Yes.
Now you say you're going to do tax cuts, even if you don't get the spending cuts. Back in 2001, you said the tax cuts...
And could I respond to that? Because if we increase people's taxes today, which will be a massive tax increase, it'll exacerbate the recession that we're in. And that is a fact, historical fact, that when economies are rough, then you've got to reduce the tax burden on people.
But it seems like you've had an evolving position on tax cuts. 2001, you said the Bush tax cuts violated your conscience. 2003, you said you opposed them because we didn't figure out how to pay for the war yet. 2008, you said you opposed them because there were no spending constraints. Now you're saying it's tax cuts even if the spending cuts aren't there. Basically, no matter what the economic problem is, you say tax cuts are the solution.
Because I can change the way we do business and cut spending. The problem, the difference of opinion that I have here with the experts that you're quoting is that it's not taxes. It's spending that's the problem. And when you look at the growth in the size of government by some 40 in the estimate of some in the last 8 years, the largest, by clearly most experts, the largest increase in the size of government, therefore the largest increase in spending since the Great Society, then guess what? Then obviously we have deficits. So it's the spending that's the problem in my view, not the tax cuts. If you don't make these tax cuts, by the way, at the time also you forgot to mention, I said the reason why I oppose those tax cuts because there wasn't spending restraint. If we'd have done what I wanted to do, we'd be talking about more tax cuts today.
Let me move on to health care. That could be the biggest difference between you and the Democrats this year. Democrats say your tax credit plan will not come close to covering everyone, and it especially won't help people with pre-existing health conditions. Here was Elizabeth Edwards, wife of John Edwards.
The truth is, our health care policy that covers everything but cancer doesn't exactly do me a lot of good. And so, as I said, John McCain and I have something in common. Neither one of us would be covered by his health care policy.
Now, she went on to say that both of you are going to be fine because you have plenty of resources to pay for health insurance. But for millions of Americans with pre-existing conditions, they won't. Why not guarantee that anyone with a pre-existing condition should be able to get health care?
We would, as part of our plan, have a special Medicaid trust fund set up to help to care for those people who are have pre-existing conditions. As you know, 5 chronic diseases consume 75% of the health care costs in America. We're not leaving anybody behind, but what we're not doing is we're not going to have a big government takeover and mandates. They've tried that in other countries. Both of the Senator Obama and Senator Clinton's plans are big government solutions. But that's true in everything that they propose, and we will continue to have this debate. What's wrong with it? Go to Canada. Go to England, and you can find out what's wrong with it. Governments don't make the right decisions. Families make the right decisions.
One of the points that Mrs. Edwards made in the Wall Street Journal, she said that your whole life you've had government health care. You're the son of a naval officer, now a member of Congress. And her point is, why shouldn't every American be able to get the kind of health care that members of Congress get or members of the military get?
It's a cheap shot, but I did have a period of time where I didn't have very good government health care. I had it from another government. So, look, I know what it's like in America not to have health care. We know that that Americans are hurting there as well. We've got to make health care affordable and available. The difference, again, between myself and the Democrats, and in all respect, due respect, Mrs. Edwards, I want the families to make the choices. They want the government to make the choices. That's a fundamental difference, and we will continue to debate that issue. But we can provide incentives. You mentioned that it's not enough, a $5,000 refundable tax credit for every family in America. It's a lot better than what they got today. And if we can let them go across state lines and get these inflationary aspects of health care under control, which we can do, then more Americans will have affordable and available health care.
Your allies are signaling that patriotism is going to be an issue in the fall. Here was Karl Rove in Gentleman's Quarterly magazine. He said, there are Democrats, particularly blue-collar Democrats, who defect to McCain because they see McCain as a patriotic figure and they see Obama as an elitist who's looking down his nose at him, which he is. Do you have any doubt that Barack Obama shares your sense of patriotism?
I'm sure he's very patriotic, but his relationship with Mr. Ayers is open to question.
Why?
And because if you're going to associate and have as a friend and serve on a board and have a guy kick off your campaign that says he's unrepentant, that he wished he'd bombed more, and then the worst thing of all that I think really indicates Senator Obama's attitude is he had the incredible statement that he compared Mr. Ayers, an unrepentant terrorist, with Senator Tom Coburn. Senator Coburn, a physician who goes to Oklahoma on the weekends and brings babies into life. Comparing those two, I mean, that's an attitude, frankly, that certainly isn't in keeping with the overall attitude of the American people. Senator Obama said, and it's very insulting to a great man, a great doctor, a great humanitarian, to compare him with a guy who says, after 2001, I wish we had bombed more. I had a reconciliation with the anti-war movement. One of the great experiences of my life was to get to know and love David Ifshin. I had a reconciliation with the Vietnamese when we normalized relations. But how can you countenance someone who was engaged in bombings which could have or did kill innocent people?
Senator Obama says he was 8 years old when that was happening.
But he became friends with him and spent time with him while the guy was unrepentant over his activities as a member of a terrorist organization, the Weatherman. And then to compare him with Dr. Tom Coburn, who spends so much of his life bringing babies into this world, that in my view, is really borders on outrage.
He also pointed out that he and Mr. Ayers have a very loose relationship. They live in the same neighborhood. There was an organizing meeting many years ago, he says, in his house, and he says, frankly, I don't agree with these comments that Mr. Ayers made.
Doesn't agree with them. Does he condemn them? Would he condemn someone who says that they're unrepentant and wish that they had bombed more? And compare him to a doctor, one of the great humanitarian, and in my view, one of the greatest spokesperson for the rights of the unborn in America.
You say he should condemn these comments.
Sure.
A lot of Senator Obama's allies and others say that you should condemn the comments of Reverend John Hagee, an evangelical pastor.
Oh, I do. And I did. I said that any comments that he made about the Catholic Church, I strongly condemn.
Yet you solicited